Good day, class. I hope everyone's doing well with all the COVID-19 things going on and all your families are well. For my video on the Fundamentalist-Modernist controversy, I have selected a famous sermon by Harry Emerson Fosdick. It was Shall the Fundamentalists Win? And Fosdick was born in 1878 and passed away in 1969. He was at the forefront of the Fundamentalist-Modernist controversy. He was one of the best-known preachers in the United States and had been educated at Colgate University and Union Seminary. He came under the influence there from a couple of liberal theologians, William Newton Clark and A.C. McGiffert. In 1918, he was called to the First Presbyterian Church in New York City. And while he was there on May 22nd, 1922, he delivered a famous sermon, Shall the Fundamentalists Win? In that sermon, he defended the modernist position. Some key points in the sermon was he presented the Bible as a record of the unfolding of God's will, not as the literal Word of God. He saw the history of Christianity as one of development, progress, and gradual change, and the fundamentalist regarded this as apostasy. And the lines were drawn, therefore, in the battle between the fundamentalist and the modernist. Interesting thing about this sermon was it was quickly distributed throughout the country to approximately 130,000 ordained Protestants by Ivy Lee, who was an associate of John D. Rockefeller Jr. And of course, it created quite a sensation. The message was not unusual from the moderate or liberal voices, but Christianity did not need the intolerance of the fundamentalists, but rather the tolerance of diverse belief practiced by enlightened modernists. Fosdick had experienced some of the tensions of his era firsthand in New York, and he was kept abreast by the strains among both Baptists and Presbyterians through correspondence, and he had traveled to the Far East in an effort to mediate disputes between contending theological parties among the American missionaries. His sermon, coming as it did in the person of his stature, ignited a controversy. The fundamentalist opposed Fosdick's liberal interpretation of the Bible and required the First Presbyterian Church in New York to conform to Presbyterian doctrine. And also in answer to overtures from the Harlem, New York Presbyterian Church in Mount Morris Park West, there was a committee of 5 that was appointed at a regular meeting of the Presbytery of New York in the chapel of the First Presbyterian Church to call upon Fosdick, who was called a special preacher of the First Presbyterian Church, to affirm his belief in the Westminster Confession of Faith. So this special committee was charged with the investigation. They ended up exonerating Dr. Fosdick in the session of the First Church of all charges and implications that Fosdick had preached heretical sermons from the First Church pulpit. So in wake of the controversy, as sometimes happens, Fosdick left the Presbyterians for good. But he went on to greater eminence as a national radio preacher and minister of the Riverside Church in New York City, which, oh, by the way, was established through funding of the Rockefellers. Interesting point there. Among the Presbyterians, as among the Northern Baptists, is just about the same time. Inclusivists that wanted a range of opinions in their denominations triumphed over the stricter conservatives or fundamentalists. So the inclusivists can best be regarded as moderates. They preferred a peaceful coexistence to the theological battles, and their victories did establish a measure of harmony for a time. But they also rendered theology considerably less important than it had traditionally been in the northern denominations. So I hope that everyone has appreciated this. I think it's an interesting point that Fosdick went on to bigger and better things with national eminence. And I hope everyone is doing well and hope you have a good week. Thank you for your time. Good evening.